Today on the newscast, Israel breaks up a major Hamas October 7th style attack. Plus, will the UK try to impose a Palestinian state on Israel? Get all the breaking details next. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. Over the past few months here on the newscast, we've been laying out for you that Hamas has been using hospitals, yes, hospitals, as terror bases. Now, in Gaza in particular, the IDF has carried out several major anti-terror raids and found and uncovered Hamas command and control, infrastructure, and weapons, yes, inside of hospitals. And folks, that's how Hamas operates. That is their MO, using hospitals, schools, playgrounds, civilian areas, civilian sites as weapons storehouses, as major bases for terror operations. Now we have yet again today breaking news: Israel carrying out a major anti-terror, counter-terror raid, not in Gaza this time, but in Jenin in the West Bank, which we call Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland. But Jenin has been a terror hotbed, I'm sad to say. Over the months, the IDF has carried out major anti-terror raids there. And today, once again, at the Sina hospital in Jenin, we see Hamas using a hospital as a terror base. Now, in this case, the IDF says, in addition to the Shin Bet, Israel's internal security service, they say that Hamas operatives have set up shop inside this hospital. And today, the IDF, along with the Shin Bet and Israeli law enforcement officers, conducted a major raid of Al-Sina hospital. They eliminated 3 Hamas commandos who Israel says were plotting to carry out major October 7th style massacres, carnage within Israel. Now, folks, this was a very daring and complex raid by Israeli security services and the IDF. It took place this morning at around 5:30 a.m., and the Israeli officers who were involved in this raid, dressed in some cases as Muslim women, and secondly had long beards, so they were wearing disguises, quite literally, as they went into this hospital, carried out this raid, and eliminated these 3 Hamas terrorists. Now, again, the key point here, folks, and the big takeaway: these Hamas terrorists were seeking to duplicate October 7th. If there's only 3 of them, it may have been on a smaller scale, but certainly they would have tried to gather more to their banner and carry out major attacks. Perhaps the target this time would be the Israeli communities in Judea and Samaria. There have been major concerns over the weeks that Hamas is digging tunnels, not just in Gaza, which we know all too well, but that Hamas has dug a tunnel network beneath Judea and Samaria as well. And it's no coincidence, and this has been a largely unreported story since October 7th, but no coincidence that Israel has arrested hundreds, if not more, of Hamas operatives, yes, in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. Why? Because Hamas certainly would like to open that second Palestinian front against Israel, and their masters in Tehran, the Iranian regime, would very much like to do the same. And you could say to an extent they already have, considering places like Nablus and Jenin, where we've seen this stream of terror threats and attacks over the past year plus, really, but it's intensified since October 7th. And again, we see Iran's fingerprints on this, folks. It's yet another front. Hey, look, Yoav Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, has laid out that there are 7 fronts, in his view, that Israel is facing right now: Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Iran itself, and yes, the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. So very interesting development here again. And Israel is exposing yet again for the world how hospitals, yes, hospitals, are used as terror hubs by Hamas. Hey, we want to break down the other big story today. David Cameron, the UK Foreign Secretary, formerly the Prime Minister of Great Britain, made some what I consider very troubling, and that's an understatement, comments today about the UK essentially imposing a Palestinian state upon Israel, whether Israel likes it or not. We're going to break that down in a minute. Before I do, a quick reminder to subscribe to the Watchman Newscast right here on YouTube and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. We would love to have you here with us every single day as watchmen and women on the wall for such a time as this. And what a time when we have world powers, Western powers, the UN, the European Union, attempting to, again, impose, whether Israel, a sovereign nation, likes it or not, impose a Palestinian state upon the world's one and only Jewish state. And folks, you have to marvel at the timing. About 4 months after a mini Holocaust was carried out on the communities of southern Israel, the deadliest attack against Israel and the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And you would think when Israel is waging a war against Palestinian terrorists, which would like to wipe the state of Israel writ large off the map, but which attempted quite literally to eliminate every Israeli living in the country south, and they would have liked to extend to the West Bank, Judea, and Samaria as well on that fateful day. But all of that, the dust hasn't even settled. Israel's still waging a war to eliminate Hamas, and we have world powers browbeating Israel and demanding that Israel recognize a Palestinian state. More on that in a minute, but here's how it went down today. Comments by Britain's Foreign Secretary David Cameron, again, the former Prime Minister, and he said, look, Great Britain is strongly considering, formally recognizing, essentially declaring a Palestinian state at the UN, a state of Palestine, which, by the way, does not exist. We have Gaza, we have the West Bank, Judea, and Samaria. There is no Palestine. There is no state of Palestine. But David Cameron is saying, hey, that's what we're going to declare. And folks, look, he's got some very powerful friends that would love to do that as well. We detailed here in the newscast last week, the EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, is saying the same thing, and he used quite specifically the word impose. We may need, he said, to impose a Palestinian state. Again, whether Israel likes it or not. Now, David Cameron said if we do that, he said this just today, if we declare a Palestinian state, we say we recognize the state of Palestine, Great Britain, other European nations, and yes, I'm sad to say, as an American, I would not be shocked if the Biden administration hopped on board with this as well, especially after the election, perhaps in 2024. But if we do this, Cameron said, the process would be, quote, irreversible in his view. No matter how much Israel resists or opposes, if we declare it, if the UN says it's so, then it is so. That's in his view. Israel's going to have something else entirely to say about that, clearly. But look, Benjamin Netanyahu rightly, obviously resisting this with all his might. David Cameron's in the Middle East, or he's headed to the region, and he will make a stop in Israel. And once again, I assume, browbeat the prime minister to recognize a Palestinian state and get the two-state solution train going once again. Here's the problem with that, folks, and the problem is really threefold. Number one, if you want to declare a Palestinian state without Israel's approval, I would presume, with that Palestinian state, you would need to take sovereign Israeli land, sovereign Israeli territory, in order to establish said state. And that means Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland where some 500,000, I believe, maybe a little less than that, Israelis currently live. Are you going to forcibly attempt to uproot them from their homes in order to establish this Palestinian state? Israel is a sovereign nation that should not be dictated to. The world doesn't seem to care about that, though. So what about that? How are you going to establish a Palestinian state on sovereign Israeli land? That's number one. Number two, there's not much appetite, and that's an understatement, among the people of Israel right now for a Palestinian state. Folks, talk about tone deafness on the part of these Western, and again, this is Western leaders pushing this, much more so than Arab leaders and the Palestinians, fellow Sunni Arabs, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, the UAE, etc. Look, they're paying lip service to a Palestinian state, no doubt. And the Biden administration has dangled this to Israel, by the way. Hey, look, if you recognize a Palestinian state, then hey, you and Saudi Arabia, Israel and Saudi Arabia, can have normalized relations. Bibi has said, no thanks, I'd like to normalize relations with the Saudis, but I'm not willing to pay that price where I put Israel's security in jeopardy. And that brings us to the third point. Who exactly is the leader of this Palestinian state that's about to be declared, it appears, whether Israel likes it or not? Will Hamas lead this state in Gaza? They're on their road to being destroyed. Will it be Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority? That's who the Biden administration keeps putting forward. And yet, Abbas's Palestinian Authority pays the salaries of terrorists. We've talked about it many times here in the newscast, that pay-for-slay program where if a Palestinian kills Israelis, they are rewarded with a lifetime stipend. That's not Hamas. That's the Palestinian Authority paying these terror salaries. So who exactly is Israel's partner for peace in this proposed Palestinian state? Western leaders aren't saying, but they're sure as heck going around and preparing to declare that very Palestinian state. Folks, the prophet Zechariah talks about a day when Jerusalem will become like a cup of trembling. Jerusalem in particular, the ancient and ancestral capital of Israel, God's one and only holy city. Zechariah says that a day will come when Jerusalem will be like a burdensome stone. Every nation will want a piece of it. It will come against Jerusalem, but all of them will be cut to pieces. You can see this lining up right now. And you can see a grand bargain lining up right now. Not a bargain for Israel, certainly, but Western leaders, the UN, the EU in particular, are devising this, whether Israel likes it or not. But at the end of the day, Israel will have something to say about this, and the God of Israel will too. So keep it right here on The Watchman as we continue to break down these breaking events for you every single day. Thanks so much for joining us today. Until tomorrow, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.